In every message Yeshua dictates to the 7 assemblies in Asia Minor, he begins with praise concerning the things that they are doing right. And then he has a little come to Jesus meeting with those who think that grace is an excuse for them to do as they please. Grace is never, ever a license to violate the commandments of God. Grace is a divine empowerment to live a holy, a righteous, and a godly life in the middle of a sick, twisted, and perverse world. His grace empowers us to do the impossible. Yeshua does not close his eyes to the sins of Balaam, Jezebel, or the Nicolaitans. He tells them to straighten up, or he will personally throw them into a bed and incinerate them along with their demonic doctrines. Yeshua may be long-suffering, but the king is coming back, and he will use any means at his disposal to drain the swamp and take out the trash. His mercy may endure forever, but his tolerance for hypocrisy has its limits. This is the message to the churches of Asia Minor in the first century, and that message is even more relevant today. The end of the age is upon us. In every letter Yeshua dictates to the 7 assemblies in Asia Minor, he establishes his position and authority and the reality that he is in their midst and understands everything that is going on in their congregations. The second section of the Revelation, Yeshua's letters to the 7 assemblies, I liken to the book of Judges. All through the Judges and the books of the Kings, the enemies of Israel were used to bring the people back to the obedience of the Torah, the instructions of the Almighty. Whenever they forsook the covenant, they went into bondage. A judge was ordained to call the people to repentance, and then that judge was supernaturally empowered to deliver the people. The last judge of Israel, before Saul was anointed king, was Samuel. Samuel was instructed to warn the people what would happen if they chose a king to rule over them. Yehovah said that he was their king, but if they insisted on having a flesh and blood king, that king would use his power to abuse them. The book of the Judges is punctuated over and over and over again with a single statement. It is repeated the last time in the last 20 words of the book. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. The first book of Samuel reveals that the last verse in the Judges is not entirely correct. There was no flesh and blood king present with them, but their true king was the God of heaven. But since there was no flesh and blood king in Israel, everyone did that which was right in their own eyes, including idolatry, stealing, adultery, murder, rape, sodomy, and Levitical priests selling their religious services to the highest bidder. I regard the book of the Judges as a prophetic book that specifically addresses our day and time. Yeshua is not personally present as the flesh and blood king ruling from his Father's throne in Jerusalem. And because no one sees him, everyone is doing that which is right in their own eyes. Yeshua knows what is going on in his name. The same abominations detailed in the book of the Judges are addressed by Yeshua in his letters to the churches in Asia Minor, and they are the same abominations going on in the church today. Israel was chastised over and over again when they forsook the commandments and adopted pagan traditions and the sun worship festivals of Babylon. Just as the Almighty corrected Israel when they went off the track, Yeshua also corrects his people with whatever means is necessary. War, economic collapse, disease, plagues, drought, disarmament, imprisonment, and taxation to the point of poverty. It is all there in the book of the Judges and in the book of the Revelation. Paul addressed the prophetic implications of the past in his letters to the saints in Corinth. All these things happened to Israel as an example to us, and they were written for our instruction, upon whom the end of the age has come. We would be fools to ignore both the lessons of history and the warnings of Yeshua about the trouble that will ravage the earth before he comes to rescue his servants at the last trump. After Yeshua establishes his authority as their omniscient king, he begins his exhortation to the churches with praise for what they've been doing right. To the assembly in Smyrna, he wrote, "These things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is now alive. I know your works, and the tribulation you are experiencing, and your poverty, but you are rich. I also know the blasphemy, the insults from those who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." Throughout Paul's letters, he uses the terms Jews and Israel interchangeably. Jew is Middle English for Judean, and originally denoted an Israelite living in the kingdom of Judea rather than an Israelite living in the area governed by the northern kingdom of Israel. Judea was populated by Israelites out of every tribe, but the rulers of Judea were from the tribe of Judah. The first time the term Yehudi or Jew was used in the scriptures was just before Jerusalem was conquered by Nebuchadnezzar and the inhabitants of Judea were carried away as captives into Babylon. In the gospel period, the term Jew was primarily used when referring to the religion of the Pharisees, and that is how it is understood in most of the world. Paul, or more properly, Shaul, was an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin who was born in Tarsus and educated in the yeshiva of Gamliel in Jerusalem. Shaul referred to himself as a Jew because he was raised in the Pharisee religion. Today, Jewish is the term that defines one who embraces one of the many permutations of the Pharisees' religion. Those who forsake Judaism or Phariseeism are no longer considered Jewish by the vanguards of their religion, regardless of their bloodline. Direct descendants of King David who believe in Yeshua are regularly denied citizenship in Israel today because they are no longer Jewish by religion. That is the identity problem of many bloodline Israelites who confess Yeshua as their Messiah. The religion of Judaism says that they are no longer Jewish. And if the government powers define Jewish as a religion, and they currently do, then they are correct. This identity crisis causes many followers of Yeshua who come from culturally Jewish backgrounds to embrace the outer accoutrements of Phariseeism to make them look and feel more Jewish. But many of these man-made traditions are contrary to the scriptures and in direct violation of Yeshua's instructions to his disciples. But if you define Jewish as it is defined in the scriptures, a descendant from the area of Judea, then one can legitimately be called a Messianic Jew. But regardless of how you define Jewish, Abraham can never be referred to as being the first Jew. Abraham was the first Hebrew, Abarah, the first one to cross over and come out of Babylon by the command of the Almighty. Likewise, in the book of the Revelation, the children of Abraham by faith are commanded to Abarah, cross over and come out of Babylon. In his letter to Smyrna, Yeshua acknowledges that the brunt of the insults were from those in the Pharisee synagogue in Smyrna. They embraced a renegade man-made religion, and they had aligned themselves with the adversary. Shaul wrote to the believers in Colossae, warning them not to allow anyone to judge them concerning food, drink, how to respect a holy day, new moon, or Sabbath day. Neither the pagans of Colossae nor the Pharisees who follow the doctrines and commandments of men. In Smyrna, as in Colossae, those who followed rabbinic Judaism rather than Moses judged others according to rules and regulations they invented. But I ask you, is there any difference between a Pharisee synagogue that judges and insults those who do not submit to their man-made rules and traditions, and a Christian congregation whose man-made rules are likewise used to judge and insult those who are not following their adopted pagan traditions? The Christian world claims to be spiritual Israel, while the Jewish world claims to be physical Israel. I assert that both of these man-made religious systems have inadvertently aligned themselves with the works of the adversary. Yeshua put the plumb line down and spoke the razor's edge truth that separated the commandments of God from the invented religion of the Pharisees and the religious systems invented by those who called Jesus the Christ. Paul said, "Let none of these men judge you." And Yeshua repealed their insults with one of his very own. They are the synagogue, the church, the assembly of Satan. Now that is a real insult. And no one ever insulted religious people better than Yeshua.
Waiting without knowing when an answer will come takes patience and discipline, a test of faith that many of the most famous people in the Bible failed. Even the apostles fell into the trap of impatience early in the book of Acts. Michael Rood reveals the story behind the apostles' test of faith in Learning to Walk by the Spirit, a special teaching available only in October.
In the Acts, the apostles were told to go to Jerusalem and wait. They were led by their flesh to vote Matthias into the number of the apostles, but Yeshua had another plan.
Learning to Walk by the Spirit is not on YouTube, and it's not available for sale. But we'll send you this exclusive teaching as our thanks for your love gift donation in October of just $50. Or with a donation of $100 or more, we'll send you the teaching plus a magnificent model of the Second Temple. Call now or visit us online to pledge your support and receive these exclusive gifts. Act quickly. Make your love gift donation now.
Yeshua is speaking to real men and women of God in the assembly of Smyrna. He doesn't have to coddle them. He began by saying that he is the one who was once dead, but is alive forevermore. The resurrection is the hope of the saints, and the hope of hearing, "Good job, well done, my faithful servant." Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that you may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. But be faithful unto death, and I will give you a crown of life. Yeshua told his disciples that if they wanted eternal treasures in the world to come, that they were to grab an execution stake and get in line behind him. He said, "The world hates me and is going to kill me. The world is going to hate and kill you as well. But be of good comfort. I will overcome and will rule this world." This is not the usual altar call you hear at crusade meetings. It is more like, with every head bowed and every eye closed, with no one looking around. If you want to go to heaven when you die, I just want you to slip up your hand right where you're seated. We don't want to embarrass you, but if you have your hand up, I'm asking you to take a step forward and let me pray with you to ask Jesus to come into your heart. How about trying a new closing technique? The one Yeshua used in Smyrna. Raise your hand if you understand that you are going to be insulted, you will suffer, you'll probably end up broke, hungry, and homeless because of me. You will serve time in prison for no reason whatsoever. You're going to be tried in the fire of affliction, and your life will end before you see the fruit of your labors. But if you are faithful unto death, you will be rewarded with the crown of eternal life. Now that you know that you're not going to live a quiet, pain-free life, fear not. Grab an execution stake in the back of the sanctuary and drag it up to the front while no one's head is bowed and every eye is open to scrutinize and criticize your every move for the rest of your life. Every lukewarm Christian will be anxiously hoping to find something wrong with you so that they can feel better about themselves. Now, this is an altar call that would weed out a few of the tares from the salvation database, but it would be far less deceptive than the wide gate, broad path salvation mantra I've heard 1,000,006 times since childhood. You shall have tribulation 10 days, but be faithful unto death, and I will give you a crown of life. It is of the utmost importance to understand that Smyrna is the only congregation that Yeshua does not correct, but only praises and encourages. Why? They are in the heat of battle. They have endured insults, persecution, and are promised more suffering and false imprisonment at the hands of a corrupt government. The encouragement? Do not fear. Be faithful to death. I will reward you for eternity. But why does he say that they will only have tribulation 10 days? Again, the parable of Isaiah tells the story best. Fitches, kitzah, are not threshed with a heavy threshing instrument, neither is a cartwheel turned about upon cumin. But fitches are beaten out with a light staff, and the cumin with just a branch. Grain must be crushed, otherwise one would be threshing it with a light staff forever. But even that is accomplished by the wheel of a cart, not under the hooves of horsemen. This is the doing of Yehovah Tzebaot, the Lord of hosts. This is wise counsel and an excellent strategy. 10 days of tribulation is a relatively short period of time. There are 10 days between Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets, and Yom Kippur. In the intermediate fulfillment of the fall feast of the Lord, it suggests a 10-day war that will bring the nation of Israel to the brink of destruction. And unless the Almighty intervenes, Israel would cease to exist. But at the culmination of that war, Israel will get all of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile. All the land promised to Abraham and his son Isaac by a blood covenant forever. 10 days to the saints of Smyrna represents an extremely difficult but relatively short period of time, a short period of threshing. It does not take the wheel of a cart to thresh out the cumin, but the trampling of horse hoofs is what will be necessary for those who refuse to hear and obey the words of the prophet. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. He that overcomes shall not be hurt of the second death.
Waiting without knowing when an answer will come takes patience and discipline, a test of faith that many of the most famous people in the Bible failed. Even the apostles fell into the trap of impatience early in the book of Acts. Michael Rood reveals the story behind the apostles' test of faith in Learning to Walk by the Spirit, a special teaching available only in October.
In the Acts, the apostles were told to go to Jerusalem and wait. They were led by their flesh to vote Matthias into the number of the apostles, but Yeshua had another plan.
Learning to Walk by the Spirit is not on YouTube, and it's not available for sale. But we'll send you this exclusive teaching as our thanks for your love gift donation in October of just $50. Or with a donation of $100 or more, we'll send you the teaching plus a magnificent model of the Second Temple. Call now or visit us online to pledge your support and receive these exclusive gifts. Act quickly. Make your love gift donation now.
To Pergamos. These things saith he which has the sharp sword with two edges. I know your works, and where you dwell, even where Satan's seat is. You have held fast to my namesake, and you have not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas, my faithful martyr, was slain among you, in the place where Satan dwells. The seat of Satan is not a chair. It is an edifice that was constructed in the temple of Zeus, where servants of Yeshua were tortured and killed. Zeus was the Greek version of the Babylonian sun god Tammuz. Tammuz, the reincarnation of Nimrod, and all of his post-Tower of Babel namesakes, Mithra, Ra, Zeus, Jupiter, were said to be born at the time of the winter solstice, on the ancient calendar, December 25th. As Babylonian sun worship spread throughout the world after the confusion of languages, customs slowly changed through the centuries, but the original sun worship cult of Nimrod had common threads that are still observed in every culture and religion on the earth. These pagan celebrations are referred to as abominations in the Hebrew scriptures, Tovah and Sheketz. They are a direct violation of the very first commandment shouted down from Mount Sinai. Thou shalt have no other gods el panai, in my face. We were commanded to not even name the names of other gods and to never learn how the heathen worship their false gods and do the same traditions to honor the God of heaven. He said it is an abomination. It is detestable, putrid, disgusting, and vile. Everything from sacrificing infants and dyeing the eggs of Easter in the blood of dead babies to the worship of Samhain, the god of death, on October 31st, to the child mass, the child sacrifice on December 25th. These are the abominations that the perverted sons of Canaan practiced that got them expunged from the land. These are the very practices that brought the wrath of the Almighty down upon Israel, as recorded in the book of the Judges. Likewise, the saints in Pergamos did not emerge from their twisted pagan culture unscathed. Yeshua said, I have a few things against you, because you have those who embrace the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, in seducing them to eat things sacrificed to idols and to commit fornication. What is the doctrine of Balaam? Balaam was a prophet who was hired by the Moabite king Balak to curse Israel so that they could be defeated and not inherit the land that was promised to the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Without a curse, there was no way that they could be defeated. Balak knew about the destruction of Egypt and the miraculous crossing of the Red Sea on dry land. It was well known that every nation that fought against Israel was annihilated. Nothing could stop them. Balaam wanted the lucrative bounty offered by King Balak, so he disobeyed the instruction from heaven and was nearly killed by an angel en route to the 3 United Nations summit meetings where he was supposed to curse Israel. Instead of cursing, Balaam blessed Israel and said in his blessing that the Almighty did not see any transgression in Israel. That revelation gave Balaam the idea of how he could get the money from King Balak. Balaam taught Balak how to induce Israel to sin, thereby removing the blessing and protection over them. The Torah warns that everyone who is outside of the commandments are outside of the protective covering of the Torah and are under a curse. Paul quotes that very curse to the saints in Galatia. All who are outside of the law are under a curse, just as it is written in the Torah. Balaam, like Paul, also understood that as long as Israel was within the protective fence of the Torah commandments, no curse could come upon them. So Balaam taught Balak to use the pagan temple prostitutes to seduce the men of Israel to come into the temple of Baal and to eat the things that had been sacrificed to their God, and to violate the Torah by engaging in sexual acts that are forbidden in the Torah. To commit fornication is literally, in Hebrew, to engage in erva matters, forbidden sexual activities which are clearly delineated in the Torah. Once the men of Israel were drawn into the forbidden pleasures offered by the temple prostitutes, they were in violation of the commandments of God, and thousands upon thousands died. Once Israel took care of their sin problem by executing the offenders, they killed King Balak and the money-grubbing prophet Balaam as well. In Pergamos, there were those who lived and promoted a filthy, grace-perversion lifestyle in opposition to the commandments of God. And it was promoted by those who embraced the teaching and practice of the Nicolaitans. Wherever the Nicolaitan hierarchy is institutionalized, the leadership eventually engages in erva matters and the erva abuse of those under them. It has become a global institutional epidemic in one religious order, which also is the pinnacle of the Nicolaitan hierarchy and the protectors of those who systematically abuse and traffic both women and children. Yeshua tells the assembly at Pergamos to clean things up, repent, or else he will fight against them with the sword of his mouth. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. To those that overcome these challenges, Yeshua will allow them to eat hidden manna in the time of need. And in the end, he will give them a white stone. And on that stone, a new name will be written, which no man knows except for those who receive it. It is on this bleak and desolate Isle of Patmos that John received the revelation of Yeshua as the Messiah, the Almighty Judge who will rule the earth with absolute power and authority. Though the rulers of this world conspire against Yehovah and against the Messiah, the Almighty will have them in derision as their plans of global dominion are incinerated before their eyes. The minions who have bowed at the feet of Satan for their piece of the New World Order will have their hopes dashed upon the rock as Yeshua destroys those who attempt to annihilate Israel and nullify the everlasting covenant God made with his people. Yes, all of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. Every nation that stands against that covenant will find itself on the battlefield against the Almighty. I'm Michael Rood, bidding you shalom, peace. And I will see you on the sea of fire and glass when the smoke clears.